so excited to introduce Celia Swanson to you. Celia and I have known each other for 13 years now.
Did you go back and check? That's awesome.
Well,
Did the math.
Pretty much as long as I've been in Arkansas and so on. It's 14 years, but we met the year after. So yeah, we've known each other that long. So we got to work together. I was working for a vendor, and Celia was with Walmart at the time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her background. There's so much more to it. I'm going to try to keep it brief, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So Celia is an accomplished senior executive. She spent 26 years at Walmart, championing its culture and its people. She's notably recognized as the first female EVP for Walmart, breaking the glass ceiling for other women. Her deep expertise in retail, large-scale transformation, company culture, and multi-generational workforce engagement serves as the cornerstone of her legacy, her career legacy. Celia is an author. She is a professional speaker, an executive advisor, and consultant. She wrote and published a book, Gracious and Strong, How to Rise Above the Unexpected Left Turns of Life and Leadership. I wrote my copy too, it's actually there, I forgot to print it. And her current consulting roles include leading to transformational change, high-performing teams and personal effectiveness, culture strategy and alignment, and a focus on improving the quality, equity, and student achievement of public education across the state of Arkansas. So it just gives you an idea of the breadth of Celia's experience and expertise and wisdom that she has to share. She actually began her career with Walmart actually at Sam's Club in 1994, and her growth from Vice President of People to other succeeding roles at Walmart, SVP of Change Management, SVP of Talent Development, which is where I met her, has just been phenomenal, and you're going to hear a lot of amazing experiences through those transitions and experiences. Celia has earned a reputation for being a key culture ambassador throughout her career, demonstrating a people-first mindset, which I can tell you I got to see firsthand how important her team was to her, how important taking care of her team was to her. So that was always something that left an impression on me. She's also known for her community leadership in Northwest Arkansas. She was selected by the Northwest Arkansas Business Community as the 2016 Athena Woman of the Year for her excellence in community service, board leadership, and regional impact in Northwest Arkansas. And she was also the only leader to receive the top 2 operations awards from Sam's Club and Walmart US.
That's changed. So there are a couple of others, not very many, like Giselle and Doug. But
Okay, she's the first.
I was the first to get both.
Brilliant. Right, you like to be the first.
Yes, I do.
Paving the way. It's awesome. So Celia, we've obviously known each other for quite a while. We've just heard a little bit about your background, but tell us a little bit about your work experience from your perspective and the work you're doing now.
Okay. So I graduated from the University of Nebraska. Go Big Red, which is why I love red. And I try to wear it and drive it as often as I can. I'm still a big fan of Lincoln, Nebraska. But when I graduated from college was in 1977, I think. I maybe I got a few years off. But at that point in time, women didn't have a lot of choices, and they certainly didn't have role models to suggest what kinds of careers you might consider. So it was either a teacher or a nurse. Well, my mother was a nurse. I hate blood. No way I could handle that. Then I took a part-time job in Head Start, thinking I would get experience as a teacher, and quickly said I do not have the patience for that. So I went to a very wise man who was my husband, and he said, "What do you love?" And I said, "I love fashion." And he says, "They have a degree in that. It's called fashion merchandising." So when I went, it was in the College of Home Economics, right? Which is just like, I'm so glad they changed that name. But 40 years in retailing. All my career experience has been in retailing. I started in the department store industry, and I was in that side of the business for 13 years. Then I moved to Denver, Colorado, and joined PACE Membership Warehouse Club, where I was there for 5 years, and then I came to Sam's Club and Walmart after that. 2 of my companies that I worked for along the way got bought. And that's one of the hardest transitions, is when you walk in one morning, that happened in the first one, and you find out that your company's been sold, and you have a job opportunity, but it's 3 hours away. What's your decision going to be? Second time that happened to me was when we were at Pace, and I was part of the executive leadership team, and we consciously made the decision to sell half of our clubs in the summer to Sam's Club, and the other half of our clubs then in the holiday season. And I was the only executive at that time from Pace that came over to Sam's, because I could see the potential. And that's going to be one of the themes you're going to hear. But today, so I retired in 2016 from Walmart after 26 years, Sam's Club and Walmart. And that transition, I will tell you, I think has been the hardest transition, because you're running like a crazy woman, right? And you've got lots of people that you're responsible for, and lots of results that you have to deliver. And then I mean this sincerely, I worked until 7:00 p.m. the night, my last night there, and then next morning, no emails, no calls, nothing. And I was like, okay, people told me to be prepared for this. I'm not prepared for this. And I planned a few little trips and things, but honestly, I'd only done about 2 weeks of planning. And so when I got finished with all that, I really went into a funk, because I did not know how I was going to make the leap into board work. And I will tell you, I've successfully done that. On the journey, though, I wrote a book. And the story of the book is, people constantly say to me, you need to write a book about this journey. And I'm like, I'm just like everybody else, you know? So I don't know that I have anything special to share. But I had met a woman 10 years before I actually retired, and one of my mentors said, you need to meet this woman, she's a ghostwriter, and you have a story and a book inside of you. And it was about 2 weeks after I retired, and I was feeling very low, and I get a call from Tammy Clinton, and she said, are you ready to write that book yet? And I said, what? How did you even know that I might be interested? That was a God thing. And, you know, I believe that God has walked with me the entire path I've been on. Sometimes I didn't like that path, many times. But most of the time I knew that His hand was at work, and it was my responsibility to live up to all the gifts that He gave me, and to impact as many individuals, and particularly I focus on women and children. Those are my two, I guess, passions in life, helping women be the best and most that they can be, and then just making sure we have great health care for our children. So I'm very actively involved with Arkansas Children's Hospital, and now serve on a pet brands company by the name of Campana Pet Brands, which is part of the Carlyle Group private equity portfolio. And I'm chairman of the board for the Jones Trust, which is the Jones Center and the Center for Nonprofits in Springdale and Rogers. And then I'm also on the Accelerate board, which is a whole different gig, except that we get to give people money. We give grants for helping people move from poverty into jobs and homes or apartments, and be able to sustain their ability to thrive in Northwest Arkansas.
That is so amazing. Thank you. So many great things. And I do hear a lot of seasons of change, a lot of transitions, some obviously welcome, some bit of a shock, right? And You know, the one thing that we all know as women in the workplace is we're going to come across change. If you're not coming out of a season of change, you're probably going to be going into one shortly, right? And sometimes those are great, sometimes they're good, but even when they're good, sometimes they're hard, sometimes they're good, but even when they're good, it's still, those times of change come with uncertainty and a little bit of fear. So, Celia, talk a little bit about how you have navigated those transitions, and especially some of the more challenging ones.
Well, first, what I'll say is you need to start by defining your bright lines. And so by bright line, just envision driving down the highway and the painted lines keep you in your lane and keep you not from going into the oncoming traffic. So what are your boundaries? What are the things that you hold most dear, that you stand for? And if somebody pushed you into that other lane of traffic, you would repel and you would stand up for what you believe in. That's a really hard thing to do. Reflect back though when you're writing these down on what have you demonstrated when you faced change in the past. So one of the things for me is respect for the individual. You do not cross my line of lack of respect. I have had many experiences where that was the case. I keep looking at Kim Burke over here because Kim saw much of this and is a superstar. So I was thrilled to see her here. But as I said, defining your bright line, mine's respect always. And I worked for a CEO at Sam's who thought the best way to get greatness out of individuals was to just be super hard on you and super hard on your team. And so at Sam's, there were 4 of us that led the division. There was the president, there was myself, chief operator, chief merchant. And I had everything else that wasn't merchandising or operations, particularly membership, marketing, and logistics. And so this CEO came, and we'd been struggling with our numbers, and so he decided to just be the aggressive bully. And we would go to these meetings, and he would take opportunities to just belittle people. And I always thought sometimes, you know, his challenges were based on need, but how he delivered it was not at all acceptable. And there were several times, well, let me say one other thing. Doug McMillan was the chief merchant at the time, right? So we all knew Doug was getting groomed. You knew it way back then that he was going to be Inc. CEO at some point in time. But he was even pretty tough on Doug. And he started to pick on my team, and I said, no, you cannot cross that line. You call me out any day of the week. I prefer it to be in private so I can come back and explain why we did what we did, but you do not get to call out my team. Done. And he pushed the boundaries once or twice, but he never crossed that boundary after I drew that bright line. So that's why bright lines are so important. What will you stand for and what will you not stand for? The second thing that I would say is ask a lot of questions when you're facing change. Not from an emotional perspective, but from an analytical and an objectivity perspective. Because there's lots of information that you don't get told when a change is being imposed on you or it's about to be. And the very best thing you can do is move those emotions to the back. There'll be a time and a place for that, but right now is not the time and place. So choose to show up positively and then just keep asking good questions, because there's more information that can help you put together a pattern of why this is logical or why this is not, and then you can frame your response based on the facts and not based on your emotional reaction to change. Another point is,
Sure. That's so good. I just want to say something about that because, you know, I don't know about you ladies, but sometimes you're in the middle of a change and you think they've got it all figured out and I'm just a victim to it. But sometimes they don't have it all figured out. Or maybe they think they do, but there's some piece of information or question you have that they haven't thought about.
Right.
So I love that. Asking questions can actually give you a little bit of power maybe,
Yes.
you know, or at least contribute, of opportunity to contribute to the change. So I think that's a great point.
yeah, control is really what you're trying to get back. Because what happened is you just lost all control. And what you need to get back is a sense of control so that you can continue to move forward, and asking questions is really important. And the third thing is speak up. So many people get smacked in the face with the change and they just go under. And then it's really hard to get yourself back up and motivated again and willing to go in and buck whatever it is, the change. Be the one who speaks up. Be the one who shows your leadership capacity and potential as you're helping your organization or your family navigate through change. And then the last one is model the way. And what I mean by that is be sure the way you show up is how you want people to talk about you. It's your legacy, it's your reflection. Don't let those emotions, you know, take you off your game. Be sure that you're the one who's caring about the people and who's, you know, carrying the, I'll call it culture banner for whatever it is you're going through. The hardest, there are two hard changes I've been through, and you want me to tell those stories now?
Yeah,
You
just
go ahead.
one thing about that culture banner. By the way, that's not just for people who have people reporting to them.
Yes.
That's for everybody.
That's
We
exactly
can
right.
all lead up and horizontally to others. We can set an example for everyone around us.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I went to fellowship in Bentonville this week, and the whole message, did anybody go there this week? Okay. Great! The message was about we're created in God's image to do God's work. And so you constantly want to be reflecting that that is who my core and who I am committed to. That's where my core values and beliefs come from, is a faith in Jesus and God. And if you can demonstrate that while everybody else is, you know, I don't know, losing control during change, you can actually help people navigate those steps much better than if they're flailing out there and just think it happened to me. That was modeled the way. So I'll tell you two stories here, okay? One is, I call it the trash can story. So the trash can story is when I was at Sam's Club, and again, the CEO came in. Well, his boss was vice chairman of the company, and Walmart had decided that Sam's needed to report up through somebody that just knew the culture, great communicator with stores at that point in time, and had some experience at Sam's. And he and I, which I didn't realize, didn't hit it off very on the right foot. I wanted to do a holiday catalog for our Advantage members, our non-business members, and his mantra from the second he got responsibility was in business for small business. So unknowingly, because my boss said, hey, do you want me to take this idea to him about the holiday catalog? I trusted. That was a bad mistake, okay? I should have gone and spoken for myself. My CEO did it, and the way this transpired is we were in a financial action meeting, which means 150 people, the top folks across Sam's Club, were all in a conference room. And at the end, the vice chairman said, Swanson, meet me outside after the meeting. And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. And then, you know, here it was public. And so I went, yes, sir, and we go to the trash cans, which were between the operations and membership marketing building and the merchant building. So we're in public path. Everybody's leaving. And he says, what about small business do you not understand in business for small business? And I started answering. He wouldn't let me. It was like, clearly you would not be making a recommendation of an Advantage members holiday catalog if you were aligned with this strategy. I expect more. You have 24 hours to tell me if you're on the team or you're off the team. Well, I'm like, okay. It was probably one of the hardest nights I ever had. You know, went home, talked to my husband. I was wrecked, right? Because I had to decide whether or not I was just going to pack it up and say, you know, there have been moments I didn't think this was the right place for me, us, anymore. And I didn't. The next morning I went into his office and I said, I'm staying. And he was shocked. And I said, I'm staying because I believe in the mission of Sam's Club. I believe in the people at Sam's Club. And I am aligned with the strategy, but I need you to respect that when I bring something to the table, I have a logical reason why I'm doing that. And do not jump to the conclusion that I'm misaligned. And he was like, wow. And I said, you know, clearly I understand where your bright line is, and that's fine. But let me at least, you know, have my dialogue. And I went back, and it wasn't easy. No way, no shape, no how. But that gentleman was terminated for embezzlement. And I went to go see Lee Scott in the middle of that whole thing and said, I was about ready to go out and hang out my shingle. And I said, Lee, you cannot let me go out into the public arena, because I worked under this gentleman for a long time, because I already have media calls coming at me. And he said, well, you know, you're right. We've never seen you operate as an HR executive. My whole life has been an HR executive, right? But I went and took membership marketing, logistics, and all of that for Sam's Club for 8 years. And he said, why don't you help me bring in a new HR executive for Inc., and you help teach them the culture and get them integrated. And I jumped at that opportunity because I didn't want to, again, get commingled in any of that. And that brought me 12 more years at Walmart. Completely unexpected that would turn.
So I just want to pause there because I remember the first time I heard this story, I put myself in the story. I would have been mortified. I would have been a complete puddle. I don't know. I only imagine that would have just, at the time, probably pulled every trigger. That would have been just like, oh my gosh, my life is over, you know? And yet, that's what Celia demonstrated, was she paused, she prayed, and then she went back, and she spoke her truth, respectfully, honoring her own values. And that's a lesson. I mean, hearing that, it strengthens my resolve, right? To realize that is the most important thing that you can do, is to speak your truth, because that earns you respect. That we teach people how to treat us, right? We teach people how to treat us, and when we cower, I mean, believe me, you know, we may have our emotional moments, right? And you've got to process that,
Right.
But then process and then determine what you're doing next. In prayer, I know you told me prayer was a big part of that.
A big, huge part of that night, and what is the right thing for me to do. And, you know, also the part of me said, I'm already out the door. I mean, if he's giving me this challenge, are you in or are you out? He thinks I'm out, so I'm out. If I don't want to be out, then I have to go take control of this situation. I may still end up being out. I had no idea what the result of that. And he was like blown away. And again, I was the only female executive vice president. And he, he understood those dynamics, right? That's not a small thing that he could just have said, you're out.
So I know you have, I want to hear that second story. There's so much more to share, but we do have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I would love for you to share with these women. We're all going to go into change if we're not in something right now. So what is the best way for them to prepare for those changes? And how does faith, talk a little bit more about how your faith has played a part in your ability to navigate those transitions.
What I would say is how to prepare for change is become resilient. Every time you're dealing with change, sit back and understand the facts about it, be the positive change agent that you can be if you're aligned with it, and then build that muscle of being resilient. I just have to tell you, it's over time I built that muscle. So when something like that, which could have knocked any one of us off our game, I had the skills and the muscle memory to be resilient. And so, how can I rise above the grips of my situation? How can I create opportunity for others? It's just not all about me in this situation. There's a whole lot of people that this will impact. How can I muster up the confidence to be authentic? How can I say what I really need to say? Because I might not ever get an opportunity to say that again. So how do I show up in a way that I can plant a seed or I can be a bulldozer, whichever of those two I need to be. And then how can I remain gracious and strong? And when someone described me, they worked at Sam's during this period of time, and they said, you should write a book, and the title should be Gracious and Strong. And I went, whoa, thank you. And she said, that's how you were perceived inside the organization. And I was flattered. But let me tell you what, that is so hard to live up to. Because the moment that I'm mad at my dog, or the moment that I'm angry about traffic, and I'm going like this, who knows who's next to me in the traffic line? And they're going, well, that's not gracious and strong. and so it's really hard to live up to, but resilience. And this story that I will tell is the hardest change or transition was when my husband passed away. We were married 37 years, one daughter. At the time she was 19, going to college. And he passed away of a sudden heart attack and died instantly. And I was in the CEO's office. We were working on talent and planning. And I got a call and said, you got to come home, like right now. And so I did. All I knew was it's about David. And so, again, I put all those emotions aside and said, you have no facts here. No one has told you what's going on. So drive, be calm, get yourself into the situation, and figure out the facts. Well, he was being brought out of the house into an ambulance. And I touched him. What I didn't realize is I knew at that moment he had passed, but I had not lost hope. And here I have a daughter who's completely, he was a stay-at-home dad, so they were best, parent-daughter relationship. And I tell you, I was angry when I figured out what happened. Angry at him, angry at God, angry at myself, and I had to get past that anger. But that took a long time with a lot of fantastic people who would just call and check on me, or who would, come and sit with me. And I never expected that I'd have to navigate this season of my life single. And who knows, that's the one part. I said, Kim, everything's great except one part. I don't have a partner. And, you know, I pray, it's been 10 years, and I know that I have to be open to accept somebody in my life, which will be hard. I've always been a hard charger, a dominant individual. And now when I see my daughter navigate life at 29, I go, wow, where did you get those skills? And she just looks at me like, I paid attention. But even through that, people, Kendall in particular, as we're driving to the hospital, she says, Mom, she's flipping out. And I said, we don't know any of that. We do not go there until we have the facts. And we're going to get to the hospital, and they're going to give us the facts. And, you know, it took a while for them to, you know, finally get to they were trying to keep him alive. I don't know that he was, you know, alive when Kendall found him, but she thought he was, so they kept him. And, you know, walking as a single person along that path, I have had so many people come up and say, you will not be alone at this function. So the Walmart US holiday party was the first time after he passed, so it was about 2 months after. And I said, I'm not going to go. This will be too hard. And the CEO, Bill Simon, said, hell yes, you're going. And you are going to be with me. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Where's your wife? I know her very well. And he said, she'll be there too, but you're going to meet me here at the home office. We're going to walk across to the event. And, you know, once you get into conversation with folks, they're not going to be hard on you at all. You'll be very comfortable. And sure enough, I was. And I've had so many people on the way just say, hey, come on. It's not being all alone. And my faith journey, God has walked with me every ounce of the way. When David passed, that's probably the biggest time where I said, really? You know, I don't understand this. It took me a long time, a lot of prayer, to understand that this was God's plan. And whether, you know, I like it or not has nothing to do with it. It's how do I handle this situation and how do I bloom as a result of it. And honestly, that's been my focus for the last 10 years. And I talk to God all the time. And sometimes in prayer, but sometimes just in conversation. And I go to church to hear, I love Fellowship Bible Church because they teach the principles of the Bible. And I don't know them all that well. So I get a lot of learning. And I think just continue to be a listener and a disciple.
That's beautiful, Celia. I don't know about you ladies, but I could sit here all afternoon listening to Celia.
Yeah.
But we have to wrap up, and I want to give you guys a chance to have some conversations too. So Celia, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Really.